So the next part of our Yu-Gi-Oh tutorial is actually going to start building a deck. So what's the best way to first build a deck? I mean, there's thousands of cards at this point. What do you pick? What do you build? What do you buy? Last thing you want to do is buy a bunch of cards you're not going to use and you dislike. Though that's going to happen when you play a card game. So I'm first going to mention, I put a link down below in the description. There's a wonderful article on TCG Player helping beginning players, and he talks about the different things you might use, different things you're going to notice, and a lot of similar stuff to what I'm going to be talking about today, but you know, I feel I need to express my opinion, help you guys out who've been watching the first couple of videos on how to play, and help you build, you know, your first deck and start to wrap your mind around this whole game called Yu-Gi-Oh! So the first basic thing you'll want to start out by doing, and again I'll put a description in this video, is go to the official Konami website and actually check on the Forbidden and Limited list. I cannot tell you how many times I've had new players or players who have been away for a while or players who just don't keep up on lists come in with decks that they cannot play. There are cards in there, they're either restricted to one, they have 3 copies, or they're banned and they have 1 or 2. I regularly, when I run tournaments, will tell people, if you're new, I will check your deck and I will tell you if something cannot be in it. Then if you need more cards to add up to 40, I will assist you in suggestions and helping you get what you need. But that is the first step, is knowing what you can and cannot use. I will put a little asterisk here to note that the Forbidden and Limited lists change every 6 months. Cards come off the Forbidden list and go into Limited. Cards come off of Limited and go to Forbidden, or sometimes Semi-Limited. Sometimes new cards get completely banned outright. It's something you're going to want to check every 6 months. Usually hits around October and I believe April or May. I'm blanking right now. But it's April. Every 6 months. A new list comes out. You're always going to want to check it, and you're going to want to update your deck as needed. The next step I'll suggest is getting familiar with the current card sets. If you go to Yu-Gi-Oh! Wikia, they have a really good comprehensive list of all the cards per set. Usually they have the newest set off to the side, and you can click and it'll say previous set was this, next set will be this. And just check what the last couple sets had in them. Check what the current set has in it. Maybe even check out what set's coming up next. But just familiarize yourself with the kind of cards that are out there. And really, if you're new into Yu-Gi-Oh! And just getting into it, you're going to want to look at cards. You're going to want to see cards. You're going to learn about cards. You're excited when you start a game. You want to learn everything that's in there. So just look and see, you know, maybe something will strike your eye. Maybe you'll see wind-ups and be like, oh, that's a great idea. I love that concept with that deck. That's fantastic. Maybe you'll do the same with Madolche. That's what happened to me. I read Madolche's effects. I saw the Exceed monster that was coming up, and I was like, that's amazing. I love that. That's a great idea. I'm going to build that deck. And you know what? I did. And it works. Sometimes. But when you're this excited, this is the time to do the research, because you're going to want to do the research. You're excited to do that research. So yeah, go through and look through at least the last few sets. Any staple cards, you're going to see them no matter what you do or where you go. So for right now, just look at the current cards and maybe you'll get an idea that no one else got. This next step is a lot easier if you have at least one other friend who's really big into the game, or you know a few people who do play the game and have a large card collection. And that is, just make a beginning deck. A deck you know it's not going to be great. It's not going to, you know, blow away everyone. You're not going to win any tournaments with it. But build a deck so you have something that works reasonably well, like just something basic. You know, a friend, if you ask them to help you out, will easily help you out with this. If not, there are structure decks which actually tend to be really, really good lately. And just play with it. Play as many games as you can. And just familiarize yourself with how the game plays and how the game flows. it's really just you don't want to invest your time and money yet. You want to invest a little bit right now just to get your feet wet so you know what you're doing, so you have an idea of how the game works. And then you'll have a better idea of what you want to play with and what you want to play as in, Yu-Gi-Oh! If you want to play something discarding or a lot of destruction or a lot of big, big, big beaters. Just figure out how the game works and then kind of go with that and just build a beginner deck. That's the thing. Don't spend a lot of money, don't spend a lot of time, just a beginning deck. Alright, the next step kind of bleeds in from the last one, which really they all should, and that is to find your local store in the area, in your town. There are almost always stores in major cities or major areas that have Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments, or even just card shops. They might have big Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments, but there's usually a couple people there, or a crowd that plays Yu-Gi-Oh regularly. And meet people, be social, talk to people, play as many games. This is a big thing. Play as many games as you can with different people. Different people have different decks and different play styles. And when you interact with those, you get many different ideas, and you experience the game in different ways, and not just like if you go to a major tournament and you run into wind up like half your matches. No, if you go to smaller tournaments, you run into such unique decks that it's great. It's wonderful when you find those decks. But most importantly, when you bring your little beginner deck and you play those different decks, you see what works and what doesn't more often. You see what is more globally like kind of works. What works against the vast span like 80% of the time, as opposed to this card you might really like, but it only works maybe 25% of the time, and it might be better for like a side deck or just kind of not right now. And the more you play, the more people you meet, the better of an understanding you'll get, and the more excited you'll be. When you have people to play with regularly, the more you play a game, and the better you become at it quicker. So that's a big thing, is to find the local store. Even if you don't play a tournament, just be social and play. It's that simple. Just do that. Alright, now that you've gotten a feel for the game, you know people in the area, you know where to play, now comes the time when you need to actually figure out your first real build, your first real deck. And that's when you have to sit down and you have to figure a couple things out. What's the goal of your deck going to be? Your deck needs to have a plan of action. Is your goal to get out Greffas and run people over? Is it to get out the 5-God Dragon and burn people? Is it to get Exodia? Is it to deck out your opponent? Your deck needs to have a goal, a game plan in mind. So, and then after you have a goal, how will you achieve it? Will you achieve it merely with all warriors? Will you achieve it with these sorts of traps? Will you, play in a combo with multiple different cards? You need to figure out how you're going to get to that point. What are its strengths and what are its weaknesses? Always figure out the strengths and weaknesses of your deck. That way you know what is going to come up and how to deal with it. You also know what games you have a better matchup against. And those are actually the games to be worried about the most, because those people, they know what their weakness is, and it might be you. And their side deck might just be against you. So at that point, you need to figure out real quick how you're going to deal with that. This is the last step, but it's probably the most important step, because this is what you're going to be doing the entire time you play Yu-Gi-Oh! From now on, and that is playtest. Playtest your deck. If you have a serious build, playtest it. Play by yourself. Just sit and play a couple rounds and see what could happen, what could work, what different combos you can do off certain cards and hands. Play with friends, or just a friend, or a random person who has a Yu-Gi-Oh! And a dual disc, and you challenge them, and there's an epic battle and holograms and stuff. Play at a local shop. Play on Duelist Network, though I personally don't like Duelist Network all that much. Play in tournaments. Play at conventions. Most conventions have Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, minis tournaments. And yeah, sometimes that conflicts with the schedule, and that's usually why I don't play many tournaments and conventions. But that all being said, play as often as you need to figure out what works with your deck. And your deck isn't going to work fantastically the first couple times. You know why? Because you don't know how to play it. Even if you read every single blog and post about how to run these decks, until you figure it out, it's not going to work at 100%. You might win games, you might win matches, but you won't know all the intricacies that your deck can do until you really practice. Practice and playtest, playtest and practice. That is the most important thing to know and carry on while you play Yu-Gi-Oh! The link I gave you at the beginning of this video will actually just expand on all the thoughts that I gave and give you other suggestions about things like game mats and dice and counters and calculators and all the other things that you're going to notice that everyone else has that you will eventually need. So I'd say read that. Read a lot of the columns that guy writes, because he writes some pretty good columns. And after that, you can come back here, and I'm going to be starting a series where I'm going to look at different deck types, specific cards, and just kind of give you an overview of what's to come and what currently is. Such as sometime this weekend, I'm going to be working on looking at the different card types, the different new archetypes that are coming in Cosmo Blaster. Then once I'm done covering all of those, about the time the set comes out, I'll be looking at this previous set, or our current set, Abyss Rising, and then from that go back to Return the Duelist, and just kind of work at different individual cards and deck types and archetypes. And if there's a really good deck that hits Nationals, I might cover that as well. Now you just need a lot of practice, and you'll understand it pretty quickly. Hope you have lucky at your tournaments, and I'll see you back soon.